Class, welcome to week 2. Okay, module 2, what are we doing? This week we're going to take a closer look at the principles associated with designing great icons. Last week we talked about icons. We compared them to symbols, kind of look at the difference, and really get an idea of this kind of shorthand visual language we're establishing by creating icons, symbols. And it's very important at this point for you to understand how this transposes to logo development. Okay, successful logos are really a shorthand visual language, right? Think of the Nike swoosh. Okay, in and of itself, it doesn't mean a whole lot. But when we take a look at the history of it, we take a look at the meaning of the mark itself, and then we start to establish its connection with Nike, and we really start to see that this is a visual shorthand. It's a symbol that allows us to create this immediate identification with the parent company. So the main thing at this point is I want you to start thinking about our development of icons. Next week we'll transition into symbols, but all the while I want you to think about how this loans itself to successful logo development. Okay, so what makes a great icon? So I'm just going to go through the module real quick, see what we have in store. There's some great icons here, some good examples here, but we're really looking at what makes a great icon and really read through this. And listen, I want you to read this. I want you to read through this lecture. Then I want you to read through it again. And guess what? When you're done the second time, I want you to read it a third time. By that time, it'll start really sinking in, and take a look at the examples. Okay, take a look at how these examples relate to the topics and the principles discussed in the lecture. All right, then take a look at the video. This is a great video right here. This video right here is more it's more about designing app icons, which we're not doing at this point. We're designing icons, but app icons follow the exact same principles we talk about and we have been talking about for the last 2 weeks. So this is a fantastic video. 5 core aspects of icon design. Scalability. So what does that mean? It means that your icons should be able to be scaled without losing any legibility, any clarity, any uniqueness, or any kind of recognizability associated with creating them larger or scaling them larger or scaling them smaller. Specifically, we talk in design about scaling things smaller, and they lose their detail. They kind of lose their communicative value at small sizes. And this is very, very important in designing your icons, because one of the tests you should put your icons through is to really take them in Illustrator. Design them in Illustrator, guys. Don't design your icons in Photoshop. I think that goes without saying, but the reason being is Photoshop is raster-based, meaning that it uses pixels, whereas Illustrator is vector-based, meaning it uses crisp, clear lines that are able to be scaled without any loss of clarity. Okay, that's very important. So you're definitely going to design your icons using Illustrator. But scalability is important, right? So this icon right here, it's pretty small here. We can see that this is going to maintain its recognizability, it's going to maintain its clarity and its legibility at a small size or a large size. They're designed purposefully to do so, and that's what I want you to think about while designing your icons. Really, really try to keep things very, very simple. Recognizability, the design needs to craft a sense of memory and connection to a functional and emotional level. Okay, consistency. Make sure we've got 3 icons that we're designing, right? So you want to make sure that the icons are consistent, not only in size, but in their visual demeanor, their color palette. Not to say they're going to use the same color palette. However, try to think of consistency in the parent hues, the tints, tones, and shades that you're using. So in other words, if you're selecting blue for one of your icons and you're using a tint of that blue, all right, and then you want your second icon to use green, consider using the same or similar formula as far as the tints, the tones, and shades involved with the parent color. Okay, that's important too, and consistency. Uniqueness, of course. I don't really think we have to talk about uniqueness. This is something that you should really strive for in all of your design work, all right? You need to be unique as a designer. Look, any design project that you have, you get 100 designers, right? You give all 100 designers the same project, and you tell them to start designing, okay? You come back and you look at the results. 98 out of those 100 are going to come back with very, very similar solutions. Guess what? You don't want to be one of those 98. You want to be the 2% to come up with something completely unique. Specifically, you want to be the one designer out of 100 that designs memorable, unique work, okay? Strive for that throughout your entire student career as well as your entire design career. It's really important. Okay, so don't use words. Of course, no, we don't use words in our design. Words and pictures are separate representational tools. Mixing them can create an unfocused experience in icon design, not in general. In general design, we mix words with image all the time. It's a very effective tool, but in icon design, we're using a shorthand kind of visual language that might not be as clear if you add words. Therefore, we're not going to add words to our icon design. Any questions on that, please let me know. That's a pretty important concept. So, all right, continue your research. Icon design guide. This is great, guys. You're going to love this. You'll probably save this. I save this. I have this on my hard drive, and I save it. It's a fantastic guide. I'll show you that in a second. How to design top quality icon. Icon-related best practices, icon design best practices, sorry, and then how to color your icons. That's an Illustrator tutorial. I want to show you a couple other Illustrator tutorials too. So we have this week's attendance question. Do not forget your attendance questions, guys. It's imperative. Okay, learning objectives. I'm not going to go through that. You guys can read through that. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know on that. But generally, I'd say our module lecture and supplemental research is going to take about 2 hours. Icon assignment, digital roughs, 3 to 4 hours, guys. This is taking your sketches from last week, really going through the feedback that you get and saying to yourself, okay, how can I make these better after last week's lecture materials and this week's lecture materials? You're going to take a look at your sketches and say, how can I improve these? Okay, once you do improve those sketches, you're going to start transposing those to your digital roughs. Okay, you guys should be proficient in Illustrator at this point, right? But if you need some brush up, here's 2 really great tutorials on how to create icons using Illustrator. Remember, guys, the name of the game here is consistency. Okay, so as far as the assignment goes, for this assignment, you're going to use your instructor review and your peer review for guidance for part 2. That was the digital rough, right? So you're going to use Adobe Illustrator digital versions. I'm sorry, for your concept development. Let me start that again. For this assignment, you're going to use your instructor review based on last week's concept development. Okay, and your sketches. Okay, you'll get feedback on those. You're going to take that feedback. You're going to look at your sketches, say, how can I improve these sketches to transpose them into functional and effective icons? All right, then you're going to start the digital stage. Now, in the real world, in a real design process, you would probably be expected from your creative director or your art director to take your sketches and to revise them, okay? For brevity's sake, and the fact that we only have 10 weeks, we're not going to do that. But it's a best practice to consider your first sketch, your creative director, your art director looks at your first sketch and says, okay, let's think about this. You go back and sketch another set based on those comments. Then you transition into your digital roughs. Okay, so what you're going to do is create your digital roughs. So here's your tutorial. So last week you developed your concept, sketched your icon ideas, and decided the most appropriate color palette for your icons. Remember, you gave color swatches, you gave your sketches, you described the reasoning behind the shapes of your sketches, you described the reason behind your color choices for the icons. Okay, this week you'll choose the best idea based on feedback. You'll develop those ideas into your digital roughs, right? The rough should show the final solution to a high degree, but expect there will be changes for next week, okay? Each of the 3 roughs should have a high degree of visual consistency and should employ principles covered in this lecture, okay? So a little bit more on and icons. So we talked about the history of icons. I want to bring this up here because I want to show you some examples here. But we talked about the history of icons, right? So what is the history? So as we talked about last week, prehistoric man needed a way to communicate with each other. Now this is written communication. So without language, without written or verbal language, it came down to drawing simple representations of things that were trying to be communicated. And that's the history of icons, right? In a nutshell. Why icons matter to this day? Icons matter because it, again, is a visual shorthand that expresses a much more broad idea. Okay, so for example, this icon right here is pretty simple, right? It's a pencil, a pen, it's a horizontal rectangle, and a circle, okay? But what does this really represent? It's a very simple, very memorable, scalable, legible icon. But what does it, the bigger picture is that it represents a bigger idea and a very robust idea. And in this particular case, it's the App Store, right? And all that's involved with that. And we see that and we know what's involved by looking at this simple icon. That's why icons matter, guys. It's a visual shorthand. I want to talk about a little bit about types of icons and styles of icons. So really there's outline icons, and we can see it's just a simple outline, okay? No color, just hard line, contour line. That's it. We have what are called filled icons, and these more are incorporating color. And not only are they employing color, but as you can see, they're employing dimension, depth and dimension, and contours based on a light source, right? So light source is over here. You can see the shadow is taking on the contours of the indicating volume and taking on the contours of the hard lines and the shapes associated with the face, right? So that's called a filled icon. This is called an outline icon. A glyph icon is AKA, also known as just a solid color fill for an icon. Flat icon, this is huge right now, guys. This is the trend. It's called a flat icon because it's a variation of outline icons, but it uses flat colors and it doesn't indicate any sort of depth, volume, or dimension. It's just completely flat. So in other words, there's no gradient involved and there's no kind of contours, you know, these kind of shadows and highlights indicating the contours of the shape. None of that. It's strictly flat. Two colors right down the middle, right? Just like the NCC logo, right down the middle. Two color, that's great, but it's still flat, indicating no depth, dimension, or volume. We have hand-drawn icons, which are, we're going to try to stay away from this. I'm just showing you this for comparative sake. But a hand-drawn icon would be something that's not so precise. Even a digital icon can be a hand-drawn icon in that it's not very precise. It's just kind of a loose drawing. Then we have what are called skeuomorphic icons. And skeuomorphism is the design concept that concentrates on creating items resembling their real-world similarities. Okay. Now, this looks cool and everything, right, guys? But this is out. This is really out. Was all the trend in, I'd say, in between 2009 and probably 2014 or so. But the trend now, everything is going to flat design because, you know, honestly, quite honestly, one of the reasons is because designers are trying to get away from this ultra digital feel in design. Okay, so those are the styles of icons. When you develop icons, I want you to think about alignment in the grid, and we can see that right down here in this video. It's a simple icon, but the grid and the alignment, note the frame around it, equidistant, the top, bottom, left, and right, equal margins, equal distance from those margins, very deliberate in its alignment and presentation. Okay, and in our case, see these little icons right here. This is why I was talking about consistency before. Note each one is very, very consistent to the next from this use of hard line, contour line, and the way it's color filled. So that's another consideration. Think about visual metaphors. Remember in week 1, remember my example of the sad face, and then we turn it upside down, it becomes the horns for the bull. Think about visual metaphors. Now, the reason I say that is because if you think about your assignment is hypothetically to design a icon for a bull, all right? So you think of these visual metaphors. What are they? Okay, I think the obvious thing is the horns. So we would probably concentrate on designing based on the horns and work from there. Software. Again, I mentioned this earlier, we are using Illustrator. Do not design your icons in Photoshop, okay? They won't be scalable. If anybody has any questions on that, the reasoning why, please let me know. I'll be glad to clarify and give specific reasoning for that. And then one of the most important things I want to end with this is designing your icons, specifically when we're working into our digital roughs. Keep things as simple as possible. Remember, most illustrations, and certainly all icons, are simply a combination of shapes. We can see right here, rectangle, square, rectangles, squares, circles, and vertical and horizontal lines. That's it. Repetition of shapes, highly consistent. Okay, that's what I have for this week, guys. Welcome again to Module 2. If you have any questions, of course, open door policy, guys. I'm right here to help, so please do not hesitate to contact me with questions, comments, concerns, or clarifications. Thanks, everyone.